Thank you. In fact, this is a subject where one can speak at various levels. One is, of course, information, leveraging upon available information, analyzing the information, to what extent does it really help, or can it help to mitigate disasters. And the second thing is, of course, information which does not help in preventing disasters, and which in any case it would be a folly to actually depend on them in a very dogmatic sort of way. When I say this, it might sound slightly surprising, because in this field and in the field of economics, which is where I actually come from, there is a concept of what is a signal and what is noise. A signal is something that can tell you accurately that something else, an event is going to happen with some degree of certitude and some degree of probability. A noise, on the other hand, is something that you may mistake for a signal. And very often, the fact that we cannot discern between signal and noise leads to very counterfactual kind of positions and policies that can be very, very dangerous. I'll come to that in a minute. Now, in dealing with disasters, I can only lean very much on the Gujarat experience, because I've been handling this area for the past 2.5 years, as Priti said. There are three aspects. One is, how do you prepare before a disaster? What do you do during a disaster? And how do you really act after a disaster? You see, for a very long time, disaster management in India was relief-centric, in the sense that after something happens, an earthquake, a flood in the Kosi, a cyclone in Andhra Pradesh, how do you really rehabilitate the people who are affected? How do you bring relief to them? That was the entire paradigm of disaster management in the country. Now, the Gujarat earthquake actually brought about some kind of a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift was that disaster preparedness is as important as, if not more, as important, it is in fact more important than what to do after a disaster. So things like capacity building, training, etc. are important, as are infrastructure for dealing with disasters as and when they happen. Infrastructure and equipment doesn't really, it doesn't really require very much of explanation. Now in Gujarat, two or three things are, I think, worth mentioning. How useful they are, I'll come to that later. One is that we have a district emergency operations center in every district of Gujarat. We have a state emergency operating center where we monitor, in real time what is happening in the districts. The districts, in turn, further bring down the levels of disaster centers to the taluka level, including some villages as well. We have a state-of-the-art SEOC, State Emergency Operating Center, which we are very proud of. And this emergency center essentially talks in terms of what do we do during a disaster. Now the ICT infrastructure, as I mentioned to you, is basically a statewide EOCs recommended by an expert committee. We have also got a state disaster response network. Now the SDRN is something that is very interesting and that leverages on what we know about disasters that have happened in the past. And this is where the problem between a signal and a noise really comes in. We have built painstakingly an atlas that's known as the Risk and Vulnerability Atlas that identifies the risks with every village in Gujarat. What is its history of cyclones? What is its history of floods? What is its history of, let us say, fires? History of its proximity to industries, and assign certain probabilities to it based on its historical projections, his historical, working back historically. And on that basis, you can say that, okay, if I am to point out 175 most vulnerable villages to cyclones in Gujarat, these are the 175 villages. Or if I am to say that, which is the most risky city in Gujarat, from a composite disaster point of view, I would say it is city X, because it not only has the probability of an earthquake, it falls in the zone 5 of an earthquake zone. It also been hit repeatedly by cyclones over a period of so much of time. It also faces floods, it also faces other kind of disasters. Now, having said that, this vulnerability and risk atlas is only indicative. We have to be very clear about that. It is not that, things cannot happen elsewhere. Let me give you an example. You see, as far as earthquakes are concerned, the entire country is divided into zones. Zone 5 is supposed to be the most earthquake-prone zone. Zone 4 slightly less so. Zone 3 is just like any other, Delhi is supposed to be zone 3, by the way. And zone 2 and 1 where there is no possibility of earthquakes at all. Till 1987-88, Latur in Maharashtra was a zone 1 region. No possibility of an earthquake happening. Or the probability of an earthquake happening is a 6 sigma event, a black swan. Suddenly an earthquake of enormous dimensions happened in Latur, and we know that overnight from a zone 1 it was raised to a zone 5. This is what the real problem is as far as natural disasters are concerned. Where are we really at, and how useful is the information that we get? Earthquakes cannot be predicted. Let me be very, very clear about it. We have set up an Institute of Seismological Research, which today gives you every earthquake that takes place in Gujarat or in northern India, even tremors at 0.5 in the Richter scale, because the Indian Meteorological Department earlier only reported occurrences above 3.5 in the Richter scale. That said, whatever we are collating day after day, because we have an earthquake, we have a tremor in Kutch almost every day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. The fact remains that we cannot predict when the next big one is going to come. Now, when we talk in terms of signal and noise again, there was this experiment, in fact, it's something that really happened. There was a scientist, seismologist in Russia, or what was erstwhile USSR, who had put together a model working backwards, and he claimed that on the basis of the model, it validated at least 17 earthquakes going back to the 17th century. On that basis, he prepared a prospective listing of where earthquakes were likely to happen and of what magnitude. His prescription was that the next big one in 1991 was supposed to happen in Boulder, Colorado, in the USA. Now, in a summit between Brezhnev and Reagan in 1988, Brezhnev passed on a piece of paper with this vital nugget of information that, listen, hey, our scientists are saying the next big one is in Boulder, Colorado, so you don't require us to go in for disarmament. You are going to get disarmed in any case. As luck would have it, nothing happened in Boulder, Colorado, and every prospective, every prospective kind of prediction he made failed. So that is where we are at. Now, when we come to the question of cyclones, the data is slightly better. Today, we can predict that cyclones actually can happen almost 48 hours before they do. We can track them coming, and by the time it is just 12 hours before it hits, we can say virtually where the landfall point is supposed to be. So we have progressed that much, and that is of course a good thing. But still a lot of work requires to be done, and that is being done. This information is something that is useful, and that is actually where there is no contributed signal or noise. Then comes the issue of rainfall. There again, things are getting better. At least in my lifetime, I remember that earlier on when I used to read in the papers that look, it's going to rain tomorrow, and I used to take out my umbrella, it never rained. And when it said sunny tomorrow, it always used to pour. That said, things have become a lot better, but how much better remains to be seen, because very frankly, the kind of information that we do get based on models which the Indian Meteorological Department has got says that heavy to moderate rain is expected. And this is something that I've got right in my palm head over here. Heavy to moderate rain is expected in South Gujarat, Daman and Diu over the next 24 hours. Now what do you expect me to do as a Chief Executive Officer of GSDMA? Do you expect me to evacuate the entire state of Gujarat? This is precisely the information for those of you, who had not been following the Uttaranchal tragedy. That was precisely the kind of information that was imparted to the Uttaranchal government. I'm not trying to say that they did a great job. At the same time, please remember that this is what they got. This is really what they got. Now, moderate to heavy showers in Uttaranchal could mean anything. So, what would the whole of Uttaranchal do? Where in Uttaranchal was it supposed to take place? No one knew. The fact that a cloudburst took place ultimately was something that could not and was not predictable. It was not predictable. And since it was not predictable, I really think that one should look at whatever happened over there with some sympathy and not through the jaundiced eyes of people like Arnab Goswami, who gets ballistic for the sake of his TRP ratings. So that is really where we are really at. Now in Gujarat, because of our industrialization, we are particularly prone to things like industrial and chemical disasters. Not all of them are, many of them are man-made disasters, and that is why the overlap with the security agencies, on which Mr. Charuwar will be speaking later on, is very important. Disasters can not only be natural disasters, they can also be man-made disasters. And therefore, a lot of this thing of what a disaster management authority does or should do, whether it should only look after man-made disasters or even natural disasters, very often gets blurred. Now this is actually our SCOC, a picture of our SCOC, State Emergency Operating Center. Now we have got several levels of redundancy. For those technological buffs over here, you see what happens. We have got a wide area network which will not work in case there is an earthquake. We have got lease lines which also will not work if there are earthquakes. The internet would choke up. Telephone lines would get down. And therefore, we have had to plan for levels of redundancy which would ensure that even if all forms of communication breaks down, you will still be able to reach the scene of that particular occurrence or disaster. And that can only be through satellite phones, that can only be through VSAT. And what we have done is that every village in Gujarat today has VSAT connectivity, which is something that is initiated by the state government to come through what is known as the E-Gram initiative. Every village has got VSAT connectivity, and we ourselves have got what are known as this is a picture of our ACOC, where you can see exactly how a disaster is what is happening in different parts of that particular place. The guys dealing with the medical part of it, exactly how the medical rescue is taking place. The guys after the policing part of it, they know exactly how the policing part of it is taking place, because during a disaster there are about 3 first responders. Invariably they are the fire brigade, the police, and the medical people. So unless you have SOPs, unless you have systems where all 3 of them can basically mesh and work together, the disaster effort itself is going to be a disaster. Now our SCOC is basically set up on a moat model. Now why is that so? Government is pretty bad, despite the fact that we have been running communication systems in the police, etc. We are pretty bad at actually handling technology. And we are not supposed to handle technology. we in the government should take decisions based on technology and based on information that is reliable. Therefore, our SEOC model, our entire disaster management information model, is based on a person who can support, who can provide a decision support system. B, a party which also has call center type functions who can be there 24/7. C, the bandwidth provider. And D, a person who can, or a vendor who can provide the last mile alert and warning. And what we have with him is actually very stringent service level agreements. So, and for him to get his quarterly guaranteed payments, his information must be of 99.5% level of certainty. Anything less than that, we titrate his payments downwards. So, advantages of the model I've just talked about. We also have a hospital fire safety decision support system. After what happened in Emory in Calcutta, we have now started a pilot, at least in Ahmedabad, where we have linked up every hospital to our disaster management system. What really happens is if a fire takes place at night, the first responder is usually at a disadvantage because he doesn't know the lay of the land. Where is the ICU? Where is the, which patient is to be shifted first? Therefore, what we have done is that we have mapped every hospital in the state, given these maps in tablets to the fire brigade, worked out protocol between different hospitals, so on and so forth. A fire takes place in hospital X. The protocol as to where to shift people, who is to be shifted first, and how is known to everyone. And we hope that the kind of incidents that we've seen can be averted. I will not dwell upon this. The oil and gas pipelines I've talked about. This is an area which is of tremendous importance to us because we have got 16,000 kilometers of oil and gas pipelines all over Gujarat, crisscrossing the state, from which theft is rampant, and every incident of theft is also a potential destination of fire. These are studies that we have done, and these are trainings. We organize training at various levels. I think that is really all that I have to say. The fact remains that we can give leverage upon different technologies, yes. We have to be very clear as to which technologies work, what kind of information flow work. As was mentioned in one of the earlier speeches, things like mass SMSs, etc., can be extremely useful. Similar things like crowdsourcing can give you an inkling as to where problem areas are. Those are areas that we are actively looking at. But at the same time, you have to understand that unless the information that you get is robust, acting or analyzing that information can lead you to very erroneous results. You have to be very clear as to which is the kind of information that you can rely upon 100%, which is the kind of information that you cannot rely upon 100%. Thank you very much.